today's Swedish Fish Tank, presented by Imagine H2O. We didn't want to do sharks, we wanted a kinder, friendly version of sharks, but it's still the idea. If you've watched Shark Tank, we have 4 judges here who are going to be putting these solutions through the ringer. While we do really mean business, we brought real Swedish fish. We might have one for everyone, but what we can share with you today is a little bit of what we see every day at Imagine H2O. Really enabling entrepreneurial innovation is a key part of our work. We view it as largely as a relatively underutilized resource in the search for solutions. And when we're talking about mobilizing more capital in water, that's been a key piece of the discussion, at least yesterday. Really, a lot of it comes down to, well, what's a fundable solution in water? And I think for a long time, entrepreneurs have really started with the gadget. Our entrepreneurs, we work with them really to focus on business model innovation. And I think when you hear Sroja from World Bank talking about creating a spark and then the fuel for bringing more capital into the space, that's what the role we see ourselves playing. As an innovation accelerator, we're the spark in the sense that we're going out each year, finding the best entrepreneurs in the space, helping them raise capital, think about their businesses and grow them. We're excited to announce that just a few days ago, our entrepreneurs collectively surpassed the $1 billion raised mark. Thank you. But that's just one piece of it. We've really been on this journey over the last 5 years of evolving our model, going beyond the accelerator model. Because it's one thing to find these entrepreneurs, help them raise capital, kind of go on that growth trajectory. But what we've seen is a unique gap in the market where we really need to help ideas turn into action. And that really is launched with the Urban Water Challenge, which Kelly Trott is going to talk about. But then a new partnership with the Coca-Cola Foundation. We're working with the World Bank and ADB, really recognizing that oftentimes communities and utilities don't have that budget to do something new. And that's really become the role of our capital in this space. So with that, I want to call up my colleague, Kelly Trott, who's really played a key role in growing the Urban Water Challenge over the past 5 years, and certainly playing an essential role in continuing to evolve that in its growth. But today, turn it over to Kelly.
Thanks everyone for coming. I'm so excited to be your host for the Swedish Fish Tank. As Scott mentioned, this is our play on Shark Tank, and we do it a little bit differently. We do it as 2 parts. So first we make our Swedish fish, aka our judges, be in the hot seat for controversial statements. And then we will have them actually play a judging role for our Urban Water Challenge finalists this year. So I am going to welcome to the stage our Swedish fish, and then I'll go over exactly how controversial statements work. But if we could have Eliza Roberts, Senior Program Manager of Water at Microsoft, come up, Seth Womble, Senior Director, Sustainable Access to Safe Water at Coca-Cola Foundation, Ifatayo Venner, with SVP at Arcadis and President Board of Trustees at Water Environment Federation, and Paul O'Callaghan, oh my God, I messed that one up. Paul O'Callaghan, founder and CEO of Blue Tech Research. Thank you guys so much for being our Swedish fish. Can we give them a round of applause? Awesome. So, controversial statements is a little game that Imagine H2O made up so that we could make sure that our panels stay interesting and, well, controversial. So the way that we play is that we will put a controversial statement on the screen, and then everyone will have to agree or disagree with the statement. And when we are agreeing and disagreeing, you guys will also be raising your hand with agree or disagree. And then they will duke it out to find out kind of what's the winner. So is everyone excited to play? Yeah.
Is there a winner for each one?
I guess there's not really a winner.
I was like, you left that Swedish fish. There was an opportunity to win this. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so our first controversial statement, oh, there's the panel, is American Swedish fish are better than the OG Swedish fish, which I also learned is around the world just called jelly. We have up here American version, the Swedish version, and I want everyone to try and let me know what they think. And then as you're trying, if you could let us know, and these are very hard to open.
Oh, I'm aware. I eat them a lot. But it's actually, no, I think I use my keys usually. How do you?
You got it in it.
Judy's do it.
I'm cheating.
And
That's why it has
if
the
you,
scissors.
in your answer, can then tell us kind of what's the role you put in water innovation.
Wait, we missed that while I was eating.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So when you agree or disagree, I'm going to call on each of you, and you're going to tell us what's your role within
Can
water
I
innovation.
have one of yours?
There you go. You
Thank
share.
you. Great. It's hard to open.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
We're collaborating.
Thank you.
Paul, you look like you've tasted both down there. Do you agree, or, well, I guess this isn't really agree or disagree. This is telling us which one you like.
Well, don't chew one of these ones before you're about to say something to a group of people that are very chewy. These are better, actually.
Yeah.
Lovely, in my opinion.
Ifatayo?
I'll go for these. I actually didn't think that I was gonna,
Yeah.
but I like it.
It's
It's
sweet.
not as sweet. It has a little bit of sour.
Ooh.
So I think I like these better.
So you disagree? I guess it is a disagree.
Oh,
Yeah.
am I supposed to like?
Everyone! Oh my God, Seth! Disagree?
I disagree. I mean, the only negative is I think we have a product failure. I can get the package open.
It's true.
But I think it is more sustainable than the other packaging. So,
Good point. Good point.
Eliza?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I sort of knew that coming in,
Yeah.
that the Swedish fish are far better, far superior to American. I am an American, but the candy is better. Although if you had given us the black salted fish,
Yes.
the ones, yeah, then I would have disagreed. Then I would have agreed.
Okay. Which is also, everyone should try. They have the black licorice.
They're salty.
Yeah,
Salted?
pass on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that we have that covered, we're moving on to our next statement, which is people, not institutions, adopt innovation. So if everyone in the crowd, if you agree, you're going to raise your hand. If you disagree, you're not going to raise your hand. So, ooh, and we're pretty mixed in the crowd too. Okay. So I'm going to start on this, I think, with Ifatayo, and then people just jump in.
So I disagree. I think the institution is really important. Obviously, I think you could take the same person and put them in different institutions, and they may, adopt or not adopt innovation. So I think the institution plays a large role in sort of setting that culture of, well, first off, defining, and providing the resources and the time and all of that for, innovation, but also making sure that the culture is there, that they're agile, they're able to fail, and that kind of culture is sort of embedded in there. So I think without that, and without the collaboration and all of that stuff, which is the permission essentially to innovate, you won't have that, regardless of which people you have there. And I would say that even for myself, depending on which institution I might be in, you definitely get a signal as to whether that's accepted or acceptable or wanted or not. So that's my
That's a
thought.
strong point. Seth, you're in
Wow, that
opposition.
She almost changed me, but I think institutions are made of people, and I think if you're going to try to change or any type of roll out any new innovation, you're going to meet with people. You're going to try to get them to change their minds or see a different vision. So I think even though it is an institution, I think there's people that form it. There's people that form that culture,
Yep.
and so I think those relationships are really important. So that's where I say start with the people.
All right. Two solid arguments. Paul, Eliza, do you want to jump in? Dive in?
Go ahead, Paul.
I was told once by a mentor of mine, Glenn Doyle, that the early adopter, and we focus at Blue Tech on the early adopter as the person that's willing to take a bet, first of all, and partner with the company on developing it. Maybe they've got to work through some kinks, in the process. And the more I thought about it and I looked around, I felt that was the case. If you think of Singapore PUB, which is a great institution, but Harry Sia would have been the person that people would think about when they think about adoption of innovation. Now, he led that, and he's got other people who've taken up that lineage. Rob Bauer in Clean Water Services in Portland, Oregon, no doubt, was, if you had a poster child, he was the person. he loved that, and you needed to get that champion on board. He was your internal champion, and once you had that person, you were halfway there. So that's why I've always felt that the individual is quite important.
So now you're putting me in a position where I have to say that the individual is not important. Personal, individual actions do not matter. Those are very good points. I chose institutions because I was thinking sort of about which came first, the chicken or the egg. And I think at the end of the day, if you have a lot of, or even just some amount of individual people doing things that are good for the planet, but it's not being adopted by institutions, then it's not going to be scaled. And I was thinking about myself a number of years ago when I was in college, and I was super optimistic about all the change I could have. And I was so focused on, turning off the faucet and taking shorter showers and all of those things that we could do. And those things are obviously still important, but then, I started to focus more on, well, those things alone really don't matter if you're not getting big companies and other institutions to adopt those changes and help push them and scale them. So people are also very important, but in the chicken or egg argument, I saw institutions as more important in driving this forward.
Fair. So I was thinking about that we can't have a winner, but maybe the audience can tell us who swayed the most by it. Can you raise your hand if now you agree or you disagree with this statement? So disagree, put your hand down, and agree, put your hand up. Ooh, I would say that's pretty 50-50. Maybe more agree. Okay, I think agree one. Whew. Next question. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Needs to be removed from our lexicon. Agree or disagree? Ooh.
I forget what I was choosing. I disagree.
Ooh, okay, we have to start with Seth then, with agree.
Am I the only one?
Plus me.
Might be, and her. Yeah, that's why she started with you,
Got you.
swaying the argument over there, Kelly.
So we got a lot to do between now and 2030. So I think we need both. I think we need to go far and fast if we're going to get everything to. So I have to admit, I use that statement quite a bit. But I think of the sense of urgency that we have to get billions of people, not mention just billions of people, but people are dying today.
Yeah.
And so I think the need to go far and fast. And this sort of statement kind of plays the two against each other. And I think there's opportunity for both. I think you can go fast with collaboration. I know a lot of times I can learn quicker from someone else and partnering with them than I could on my own. And I also think that to go far, sometimes if you look at just the industries we have out there for change, you have some individuals that don't fit into a normal group or fit into the clique of collaboration and have really pioneered, and they are the champions of new technologies and new problem solving. So I think I don't think there's an either or, but I do think we need both, far and fast.
Ooh.
So my disagree was actually the same answer because it was more, it shouldn't be removed. I think you just have to rethink it, that both are important. We kind of try, a lot of times when we use that statement, it's one is bad and one is good. And both are necessary. I think we talk a lot in water, you go into different spaces, but the conversations are the same.
Yeah.
We're just not necessarily having them together. And I think a lot of that collaboration and doing a lot more together is really necessary for us to move things forward. But at the same time, I think we really need some of those sort of individual champions who are like, I'm not waiting on you all, I'm gonna push forward and you can catch up. I think we need a little bit more of that, and so that's the individual sort of moving along. So I think I guess we have the same answer, but we need both.
I like it.
I'm almost swayed by what I've heard so far, because now that I think, and even maybe to the first question, another person that I saw moving really fast was Hans Buchholz within L'Oreal, the cosmetics company, and Hans sold the vision internally that they could go towards a zero liquid discharge factory. He got people together in a room like this and showed videos of moonshot, and he got this inspiration to get people to believe it. And then once one of their factories had done that, then they got 3 more to do it. And then once 3 more had done it, then suddenly every L'Oreal factory was saying, well, we don't want to be left behind. So to an extent, he went fast by being able to lead and bring on board one. And I think that's when you want to get the lighthouse projects on the go, the examples. But I think if you want to make a 10-year or a 15-year journey of something, that's where events like this are so important, because that's more of a collective, collaborative vision, which is perhaps you go together over the long haul, but if you want to make it a quick progress, it does make sense to have people who can take a go at something, to run at something.
Can I add something in there as a question? So how about Elon Musk, though? Like, he really went it alone for a long time to get that industry off. So, I mean, you guys disagreed with the statement largely. Like,
I think I meant to choose agree, actually.
Oh,
I was getting
well
all
then let's hear
confused
it.
in my head about which one I was, yeah, I don't know if it's the jet lag or what catching up with me. But I think I really actually am very aligned with what Paul was saying. Because I think if you're only doing things together is really important.
Yeah.
And collective action is very important to Microsoft, rest assured. Like, we cannot do what we need to do without others. But if you try to do everything together all the time, you're just not going to get that far. Like, if everybody's legs are tied together and you're trying to run across a room, like, it can be hard to innovate and make new, exciting, big things happen. And so maybe part of this is also like, for what? What's the context? Like, if you're trying to innovate and do something new, then it can really help to move fast if you're doing something alone or as an institution, and then you can share with others and bring others along on that journey once things have been figured out, instead of trying to all figure it out together, like a small group of people figuring it out. But if it's something that has already, you know what the problem is in a specific basin, there's a bunch of projects that everybody needs to invest in, then going alone isn't the right answer. But working collectively is critical, because everybody knows what needs to be done and you need to do it together. I think we're all kind of saying both, maybe.
Do you want to say you'd like American fish too?
No, I did not. No, I'm sticking with the Swedish fish. Yeah, it was just that one statement, but thanks for that.
well, with that, let's see from the audience. If you agree, please raise your hand. If you disagree, keep it down. Ooh. So largely, I would say disagree here. Yeah. Okay. On to our next statement. Water should stay far away from the climate conversation. Agree or disagree? Disagree.
I feel like I should choose the opposite. Just-
All right, we get to start with you.
That was sort of
then.
my plan for this one, actually. So what am I saying? I'm saying I agree.
You agree with it.
Oh, actually, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think linking to climate can be really a great way to get attention and to ensure that water is not forgotten. And I think many people in the room, we all work in the water space, can relate to, unless you work in an organization that is just water, but being like, don't forget about water, don't forget, like, this is also important. And so I think that can be a really strategic way to do that. That being said, I think so much gets lost in the mix, and then you can end up moving forward with solutions or misunderstandings about what the challenges are, because everyone's like, oh, well, so yeah, similar to carbon removal, with replenishment, you're facing X, Y, and Z challenge. And it's like, well, yes, but also it's quite different. And I think it's sort of, this is a random example, but I think it's somewhat similar to environmental campaigns sometimes, where they pick a specific focus for that campaign to get attention.
Yep.
But then that's not always the true issue that, maybe it's the whales that you're focusing in on, and I don't, Liza from Microsoft doesn't care about whales. No, I do care about whales. But sometimes it's the whales that will get global attention, but it's really the fisheries that's going to really have the biggest negative impact on a community. And I think there's some risk of that happening with water. If we just talk about water in the context of climate, then so much can get lost in the mix.
Okay, strong statement. Anyone ready to jump in?
I think water makes a good story. It's an easy story that everyone can comprehend, and we all feel it with climate change. And so I think to the point of, can climate change get complicated? It can get very complicated to just the average person who's not out there living, but we can feel water. We drink water, we taste water, we use it in our everyday lives for different stuff. So I think it really makes a great anchor point for a story that can sometimes be very complicated, can be very political,
Yep,
and it's something that we can all rally behind.
also a fair point.
Yeah, and I would say, I don't know how you separate them. There may be a part of the water conversation that is separate from climate, but they're very linked. I mean, some of the solutions for climate are through water. The effects of climate change are often felt through water, so I don't see how you can really separate them. And I don't know that in the stage that water is at, where for the general public, water is not really that much of a conversation, it is a way for us to align ourselves to have a lot more attention There are definitely things in water that we can and need to do that address the climate situation, and I think people need to know that. But as far as like getting attention and financing and investment and all of those kinds of things, I think it's necessary. It's a way for us, as you said, I think you said, to get us in the conversation where we aren't, because a lot of our work has been traditionally very hidden. And climate allows us, that climate conversation allows us to sort of come out from the shadows and get the attention, and maybe a little bit down the road we can be separated, but I don't know that we're there yet.
So I often think about this division of climate and water, and we were talking to Paul Hawken, who's done extensive work on how to reverse climate change, and I said, Paul, the challenge with water is you don't have a single thing. It's not going to a global commons. It's very hyper-localized. How can we have one standard? We can agree on a standard for reducing CO2. And he responded, he said, it's all about water. And he challenged me to think about those links in a very different way. Particularly on the green water cycle, like we focus in a reductionist way on CO2 as the gas. It's a very, very important part of the equation, but so is water vapor in the atmosphere, the different effects of absorption and distribution of heat. In a hot day, what do? You put water on yourself. I was in Phoenix, Arizona on a rooftop. It was like, well, it was probably 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It was cold because the water was being evaporated from my body. And when we have water in cities or on the ground, you cannot get the level of overheating you can otherwise get. It just cannot happen thermodynamically. That's the wonderful thing about water. And one of the things we've done over the past 100 years is we've taken the water off the land. We've concreted it. Our soils can't hold water any longer. And as a water sector, what we can do is if we reduce the amount we take, we leave more. By leaving more, you restore the green water cycle. By doing that, you create the small water cycle, not the bit we were taught about in school, but that localized water cycle. And that makes every single person feel that they have agency and participation in the climate debate by engaging with water. And it's very tangible. It's something everyone can experientially relate to. So I think there's something very powerful in not allowing ourselves to be at the very tail end of the water and climate debate, dealing with floods and droughts, but really to put ourselves thinking more holistically about the agency that water has as a distributor of solar energy across the planet.
Strong responses, and I'm going to challenge you, audience. You know what to do, agree or disagree. Ooh, 100% disagree. Wow. Okay.
Or maybe everybody might have just also got lost track of who was on what side, right? What's going on here?
I feel it's on a double negatives.
As he was speaking, I was like, I think he said the same thing I did. Like, I also disagree. I don't know. I couldn't keep track. All very strong points.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Environmental justice is absent from the water discussion. Agree or disagree?
Let's see.
Oh, so we got 50-50 here. Okay, who hasn't kicked it off? Is that you, Paul? Or Taya? It's Paul. It's Paul.
I think about social justice, and you can't separate social justice from environmental justice. The two are flip sides of the same coin. In one sense, it's hard to know whether you disagree or disagree with the statement, but I think the bit is poor people are obviously having more of an impact because they have no choice. And once you bring them along up on the social side of the equation, immediately they have an ability to address the environmental side of the equation. And I think that's probably what gets lost in that debate.
Okay. Seth?
You know, I have to keep rereading
I know, me
the
too.
Yeah,
statement
this is
to
the
say, did I
tricky
get?
part.
I think there's different context. To me, there's the developing community context where we tend to, we think about the vulnerable a little bit more. But when I even think about in the United States or in a developed nation that has water everywhere, I think the vulnerable are often completely forgotten because we think the problem's solved. And so I think from that standpoint, to me, I see vulnerable communities like in, I think of Flint, and what happened there in Flint is being a good example of just when it happens, there's still no solution for these things too. And usually the vulnerable have, we may know about it, but they have sort of the weakest voice. They're not constantly on the I have not heard environmental justice yet this week. That was another reason. I don't think I saw I'm going to go back and look at the schedule. I
know
don't
if
think
I
I
did.
saw one with environmental justice in the title, but I'm going to go back and check after this. So that was sort of, I just did some quick checks this week about, what discussions I was a part of or what I heard, and I haven't heard anything about it this week, and you think this would be the place. So that was the reason I agree.
Okay.
What he said, and I think there's, like, if you look at all of the reports and research that have been done on water, I think when you think about the wash sector, then yeah, maybe environmental justice is more a part of the conversation. But there just hasn't been as much research and focus in on it, or at least I haven't seen as much, like roadmaps, guidelines for companies on how they can integrate environmental justice into their commitments. And I just think that's something that we all need to be thinking about so much more. And not just saying it, but truly understanding what it means, what kinds of negative impacts everybody is having on others, and how we can truly integrate those into the decisions that we're all making to help have a more positive impact moving forward.
Right. So I said I disagree because I think especially over the last, I don't know, especially in the last year or two, but certainly a little bit before, you're definitely hearing discussions, so you said conversation, about environmental justice, about, folks who have not necessarily benefited from a lot of the investments that have been made in water, or have had environmental injustices. So that conversation is happening. I think there's been some discussion about how do we deliver finance and investment to those communities. I think that's about as far as we've gotten. I think where it seems that we haven't really progressed beyond that conversation we've had in the 5 years of the necessity of it. Because I think people are having a hard time figuring out what that looks like in practice. And how does one engage with those communities who don't necessarily have a reason to trust us, whether it's the persons with the financing, it's the persons with the solutions, because frankly, they're the ones that have done the harm. Those folks have not necessarily benefited from it, and those are folks who don't necessarily look like them. And so I think the way companies and sort of government institutions are having the issue is how do I bridge that so that I can get those solutions in place and so on. And I think even, within institutions like this, there's a lot of discussion about WASH and, solutions in developing countries. But again, the power structure and those who have the money and all of those things still look exactly the same. And their approach is still the same. And obviously that approach has not really resulted in the solution we want. And so I think until we get past the conversation and acknowledge that behavior has to change and how we approach and how we look has to change, we're not really gonna progress past conversing into actual action and the solutions that we're all saying that we want to happen. So.
Okay, very thoughtful points on both sides. Audience, agree or
We can
disagree?
remind you what we
All right, a bit more mixed here, I would say, mainly on the disagree side. All right,
down 3 for 3.
man. Final question of the day is water innovation's fate shouldn't hinge on venture capital. Oh, all agree. I'll say this. I'd also be curious of the entrepreneur's thoughts on this one, but let's start with you, Liza.
Well, I think, oh my gosh, my brain is just, whew. So I think that we need more venture capital when it comes to water. And we need more venture capital that is focused on, it's impact-oriented, and not just saying it's a water fund, but not having, impact-oriented investments, like saying something's access, but really it's like an Uber for water, right?
Yeah.
But if it's just venture capital, then we're not gonna see the scale of innovation that we need. And I think there's a huge role for others to think creatively about innovation and to help support it. So one example that I can share are some projects that we're looking to invest in through our replenishment portfolio. So we're looking for startups that have interesting, innovative water solutions. And we're looking for ways, we invest in companies through our Climate Innovation Fund and provide equity. But we also provide direct investments and become customers. But we're ultimately buying meters cubed of water that we can claim towards our target. And so I think there's a lot of power for companies to come in and support startups and provide not necessarily just equity, but also direct investment that will help them to grow and scale and help them then go to the next customer and say, we've got all of these projects, now please join us.
Great answer, and I'd just like to point out that I love the fact we're asking a civil engineer his opinion on venture capital. Yes. I just think there's so much to do that there needs to be, it can never hinge on one avenue for funding.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be diversified. I think there's a lot that venture capital has done, and, going faster maybe in some ways, and, taking a little more risk with some areas, and maybe looking for that big blockbuster transformational change out of innovation, but I don't think it needs to hinge on one.
I would agree with that, and I also, just coming back to the question that we had before about environmental injustice and talking about equity, historically that's not been very equitable.
No.
And in addressing, a lot of the things that we have, that has to change, but also I think, and I'll take off my work hat and my WEF hat and the hat of where I grew up, which is in a developing country, right? There's a lot of the solutions and a lot of the innovation isn't necessarily happening for solutions for that situation. And frankly, I feel like in those areas, they have solutions to address that were caused by other people. And it is a responsibility of those corporations and those countries that have benefited from all of the stuff that they have done that have essentially caused water issues in a lot of developing countries, or they have not necessarily had access to that investment. Show me the money.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in that way, but but yeah, that's my thought. So not just that, but even that needs to be fixed because it's not been equitable at all in terms of its distribution and in terms of who the solutions are for that they invest in.
I think those of us who've been in the sector for a number of years, like Imagine H2O, Blue Tech Research, Water Environment Federation, we've seen this sector evolving from the clean tech era of 2005 to 2010 when all the big VCs in California were making 1 bet, 2 bets in water. Kleiner Perkins, Vantage Point Venture Partners, Draper Fisher Jerviston, Coastal Ventures. The only thing that happened was they all lost money. That was the only consistent thing there. And they did it because they all made 1 or 2 little bets in water, but they didn't really understand it, but it sounded good, and shouldn't we do a water deal? Yeah, of course we should. Let's find one. And they did. And, some of those companies are still around, but the point is the venture capital investor didn't make any money on that being that first investor. They got out, they exited. And so I became really curious about this because I'd been around and I'd heard so many times it's conservative, it moves slowly. Well, does it? Does it not? Where's the data? So we got the data on evolution of water technology companies, analyzed it for what became unicorn markets, and we found it can take 12 to 16 years from when you come out of a lab to when you're in the mainstream of the market in $1 billion market, 12 to 16 years. Now, venture capital doesn't want to wait that long. But you can create a lot of value depending on the timing. And to say innovation, we break it down into a matrix, okay? We've got like sustaining innovation, we've got discontinuous innovation, we've got value-driven innovation and crisis-driven innovation. A utility wants something that's usually a value-driven, sustaining innovation. And that means something very, very different to them to what a venture capital wants to think about when they think of it. So same word, different meanings for different people.
Yep.
End user innovation is, Pepsi-Cola. How can I get more water out of a potato, vapor from a potato chip? So they co-invent. So there's flavors of this, and we were all speaking different languages. So what I think we're seeing is that Imagine H2O has become one of the world's leading accelerator programs, helping companies go through particular stages of the journey. WEF support companies to enter into a mainstream market, and it can be with them throughout the whole course of that journey. There's a lot of co-invention going on currently between corporations and startups where they want to participate in the invention. And when the venture capital investors come in, they've got a particular niche and the more educated and informed they are, the more role that they can play. But then we also need innovation in policy and other areas like regulation also. So that was what I was going through my head as I was reading that question, why I disagreed.
Not just that.
Not.
Wonderful answer, and I think to just give a little shout out to the venture capitalists, since I used to be on that side of things, I have seen a lot of the venture capitalists are starting to change kind of, and Draper in particular started a whole venture philanthropy fund so that they could fund options that don't actually fit the venture capital model. So I think it's also evolving maybe the way that we're thinking about it too, exactly what you're saying, Paul.
It's become so much more specialized. Like the funds that we see doing well, like XPV, True North Venture Partners, Emerald Technology Ventures, Science Water Capital, Echo River Capital, they all have a much more nuanced strategy. They've chosen a niche, they've become educated and informed in that niche, and they understand why they're in water now to a much greater degree than people would have 10 years ago, and they're having much more success.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I'm on your guys' side too. But audience, are you with us or are you against
Does anyone
us?
disagree?
You agree? Does everyone agree? All right, we ended on agreement, I would say. So can we please give a round of applause to our Swedish Fish?
I'm taking my Swedish fish.
And I'm going to ask them to now sit as judges with their Swedish fish they can eat.
So we pass them around.
Yeah, if people are open to it, please have some. I have some more that I can pass around. And we're going to be switching to the pitch style part of our session, the actual Swedish Fish Tank. I'm going to have Taylor Evans on our team, who has been managing the Urban Water Challenge, tell you a bit more about what the program is, and then introduce our amazing innovators. And then we'll find out who wins the Swedish Fish Tank. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Swedish Fish. Got everything you need? Yes, looks like it. So to start us off, the 5 presentations you'll hear today are the finalists for the Urban Water Challenge. The Urban Water Challenge was launched in 2018 and has helped 27 startups complete 36 pilots in 17 countries through 1.5 million in non-dilutive funding. We've had every cohort, I think, maybe except for the first one, present to Stockholm World Water Week, so we're super excited to return this year. Before I give it away, I just wanted to thank our challenge funders, 11th Hour Racing and Oceankind, who were unable to be here today. So next up, you'll hear 5 pitches from our finalists. They'll have 5 minutes, followed by 1 to 3 questions from the judges. And then the judges will go away for a few minutes, choose an overall winner, and we'll announce from there. So first up, we have Paige from Rapid Radicals. Let's go.
Hi, fishes. I'm Paige Peters, founder and CTO of Rapid Radicals Technology. I founded Rapid Radicals. Is this a safe space? Is this a safer space? Yeah. All right. I'm in my safe space. I'm going to start over. Hi, fishes. I'm Paige Peters, founder and CTO of Rapid Radicals Technology. I founded Rapid Radicals in 2016 to commercialize my graduate research, the Rapid Radicals Treatment System. Our technology is a patented, decentralized, high-rate wastewater treatment technology that can treat water in less than 25 minutes compared to 8 hours for conventional treatment, providing a reliable solution to eliminating sewer overflows during intense storms. In the US alone, 850 billion gallons of untreated sewage are dumped into US lakes and rivers every year due to sewer overflows. That's equivalent to 170,000 Mississippi rivers filled with poop water. So if you've ever wondered how much a shit ton is, well, that's it. We started in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was really triggered by the storms of 2010 after contaminated water flooded the basement of my co-inventor and advisor, Dr. Dan Zittimer. At that point, Dan thought there has got to be an engineering solution to solve this problem. So Dan and I started working with Milwaukee's Sewerage District in 2015 to help them meet their goal of 0 sewer overflows and basement backups. And while our story started in Milwaukee and close to home, it's a problem that is impacting the entire world. With climate change, that problem is only getting worse. As urban populations rise, and rainfall events become more intense, more frequent, and less predictable, utilities need new solutions to address this ever-growing problem. U.S. utilities spend $50 billion on sewer system improvements and management, and even in places where these multi-billion-dollar federally mandated infrastructure investments are being made, sewer overflows still occur due to aging infrastructure and the long treatment time it takes for conventional biological treatment to work. To solve this problem, Rapid Radical's proprietary solution can treat water to the same quality as conventional treatment 20 times faster in a smaller footprint and at a competitive operating and capital cost. Our fully automated system combines rapid solids removal followed by chemical oxidation to remove organics and disinfect harmful bacteria and viruses. Our cost-competitive design is also modular, so it can be integrated into existing infrastructure at locations where these sewer overflow events occur. Now, we talked to over 250 customers and learned that utilities need water systems or treatment systems that are cost-efficient, energy-efficient, take up less space, and are easy for their operators to both use and maintain. So we created a technology that responds to those, while also outcompeting the status quo in treatment speed and performance. We can reduce treatment costs by 20 to 75%. We can reduce physical footprint by 95%. Our system literally has a start button. We can treat water in less than 25 minutes and receive up to 90% pollutant removal compared to 50 to 75% for other high-rate treatment technologies. And we're well on our way to get this thing to the market. We launched our new 100-gallon-per-minute pilot as part of the Urban Water Challenge deployment in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District earlier this year, treating real wastewater to permit requirements for organics, solids, and bacteria. We're also testing micropollutant oxidation, PFAS destruction, and virus inactivation. And we have commitments from partners for partner-funded pilots into 2024 in the Great Lakes region in the US and also with the UK Water Company. So beyond our containerized systems, which we can build and deploy, and for which we're actually exploring a hardware-as-a-service model, we'll engage design-build consultancies or sub-license the technology to manufacturers to get those built implementations and installations greater than 1 million gallons per day. And our key market right now, our most immediate opportunity, is within the UK, as sewer overflows are prominent in the media, and the water companies in the UK have publicly committed $12 billion to new infrastructure to address sewer overflows by 2030. If just one water company implements our technology, we're looking at a minimum $30 million opportunity. Our chemical oxidation technology is also well suited to address emerging industrial wastewater treatment needs, and we're collecting that data with our new pilot to further partner discussions into 2024. Our team's curiosity has really led to customer expertise, and we have both the strategic and technical experience to take this to market. We're also supported by a wide network of advisors with both technical and commercialization experience. Since our founding in 2016, we've leveraged $1.6 million in non-dilutive funding to scale our technology and grow our company. And into 2024, we're going to continue growing that traction with those partner-funded pilots to keep us on the path to full-scale implementation and commercialization. And we'd love to include you in our journey. We're looking for advisors with experience to enhance our team, partners to help us reach our customers, and investors who are interested in creatively supporting our growth. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Any questions from our Swedish fish over there? He's a very talented person.
This is also really inspiring. This has just been sitting here staring at me. I'm like, yes, we do agree.
Well, thank you. It was a great presentation. Awesome product, awesome challenge you're trying to solve. Question a little bit around, you said you're piloting, your first pilot's going to be the U.S., but your market you really see is the U.K. Just wonder why did you start in the U.S. as opposed to going straight to where your customer base is going to be in the U.K., where you're heading to?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's interesting because the technology started in 2015 as part of my graduate research, and we've been scaling with partners within the Great Lakes region. The problem exists all over the place. What's driving this technology to the market is going to end up being all related to policy and regulations. And the regulations around wet weather in the states, while there's this desire to affect change, there's just not a regulation newer than 30 years old that's really pushing the adoption of a technology. And as we know, that's a big driver for utilities. So because of the media attention and because of the new commitments by the UK water companies, we're seeing that as a real big opportunity to jump on immediately.
Hey, Paige, you had mentioned that, prior, and I guess in the UK, you were looking at municipal sort of utilities, but you mentioned that, I guess, industry or industrial folks may also be interested in this. Can you help me understand what that looks like? Like, what would they, what kind of industry, I guess, and what solution would you be providing for them?
Sure, I'll just throw this back up real quick. Yeah, so we often get the question, industry moves faster, why not work within the industrial space, municipal, slow regulations, et cetera. And for us, a lot of it is because we started to solve this sewer overflow problem. So the funding that we've gotten and the projects that we've worked on, and the reason we all do what we do, which as all entrepreneurs know, that's kind of half of or most of what keeps you going, has stayed within the municipal space. But it is a chemical oxidation technology, so it has capability to oxidize micropollutants. We've collected some bench scale work results around that ability and are going to validate that within the pilot so we get those real market level validation numbers. But as we're looking at different needs of the industry, there's opportunities to solve problems that they have right now. So high organics, again with chemical oxidation, micropollutants, and among some other emerging things. So it's about finding someone who's a problem that we can solve right now while continuing to work on that municipal problem.
Intriguing and fascinating, and Lord knows, I think you're dead right with the United Kingdom right now. They've under such pressure to address that problem that they will embrace this with open arms and exploring it. You've got two parts to it. It's a technical question, which I think would be, hopefully it's of interest not just to me and helpful for everybody, but that you have to take the solids out first of all, so that's probably an important part of the process, and then you hit it with an oxidant, ozone-based, I'm taking it. Your variability of flow with those two technologies, because one of your challenges, of course, are the flows can be enormous and they can vary. So how do you adapt up and down for size and scale of projects, or indeed even size and intensity of storms, with both the physical separation, solid separation process and the oxidation process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the biggest components of the pilot, why we're operating it at a remote facility right now, treating real wastewater, is so that we can start understanding that variability in the wastewater matrix. What we're so far seeing is that the solids removal component is incredibly consistent, and we're creating, actually with a lot of the sensing work that we're doing as part of the Urban Water Challenge deployment, is we're using our previous data to create an algorithm that actually incorporates machine learning into what does the influence side look like, so we can sense that. And then we have all this data from years of other pilot work that we've done that's going to say we can change how much oxidation occurs or how much oxygen is required based on those influent conditions from data that we've collected. So being able to look at the different flows, so we have a capacity between 35 and 100 GPM for this pilot, which again is still sort of within one magnitude, but we can push it. So we can collect that data and then really building that sort of automated side of it that provides a design, obviously a safety factor in there, but gives us a chance for that energy efficient component to fluctuate as the storms fluctuate. And this is all part of a new batch of data, a new amount of information that's being collected within the sewer overflow world in the UK and otherwise, because we need to address it. And that's something that hasn't been fully understood. So we're participating in that and making sure that, that we consider it as we consider scaling. Thank you. Thank you, Fishes.
Okay, next up we have Jean-Francois of Aqua Robotics. Sorry about the name. No. Wasn't sure if just to go casual JF or Jean-Francois.
Jeff will do, yeah. I think that's for everyone. If you say the last name, that's going to be even worse. The Guiderdoni, so I'm torn between France and Corsica, basically. So no Corsica. So I'll speak too much as a French, and I'll keep my mouth shut as a Corsican. So hopefully 5 minutes will do. Shall we go? I've learned everything, so I could redo it. Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Jean-François Guiderdoni, that's the French way. I'm one of the co-founders of Aqua Robotics. Before I speak about Aqua and what we do, Let me tell you where we started from, because we started from a problematic. We didn't start from a product, even though we're kind of a deep tech robotic company. And over the 5 minutes I'm going to talk, maybe a little more, we will be losing about 1 million cubic meter of water in the water distribution system. And one of the key reasons why we are losing so much water on our distribution network is its obsolescence. Basically, we have a network overall that reaches an average age of 60 years plus. So we're going to be accelerating, the problems are going to be accelerating as the networks grow even older. And it's very difficult for water utilities to seek the right information to understand precisely when and where they should be renewing the network. One little detail that's important also is that it costs between 150 to 800,000 euro per kilometer to renew a water distribution network. That means that we've got about, in France alone, 1 million kilometers of networks. That gives you an idea of the size of the challenge for those utilities and how important it is to get that information. So what we've developed at Aqua is basically a solution to get that information and to collect data. And we are a robotic company, but first and foremost, we are a data collector. And the idea is to be at the heart of the network. That's the only place where you can really seek the extensive level of info that's going to tell water utility precisely this is where you should be renewing, this is when you should be renewing, or this is where you should be repairing, or just leave your network alone because it's actually doing pretty well. And we have the first device that's autonomous and smart to be able to run in water. That means we don't have to disrupt water distribution and to run several kilometers because we're in autonomy to collect all those data. And I'm not talking about finding leaks. I'm talking here about finding, reduction of thickness of pipe, corrosions, all a very large set of data by embedding a lot of smart sensors on the machine and then giving that out to the water utilities on their GIS system, the Geographic Information System, so that they can really make very informed, easy to make decisions with like simple, colorful elements about this is red, this is this year, this is orange, probably in the next 2-3 years, and that they can budget easily. How do we bring this to market? The business model is not to sell the robots, it's actually to provide a service. And a service that's going to represent about 2 to 4% of the cost of renewal. This is really important because this is what's going to make them tick. We often say there's no money in water. Well, actually, this is going to make them money. This is really a very easy return on investment to decipher for them. And the other element is we are on a conservative market. And on this conservative market, you have to make friends. So we're going to be working on an indirect approach with service provider, with private operators, who are going to help us bring this to market and deliver the solution. There's more than enough value in the value chain to bring share that value with those guys and accelerate the deployment to water utilities. Market size, we talked about it already, and you can see the numbers. And that speaks for itself after that. We've got a pipe. We have hardly any salesperson for the moment. It's 14 of us, and it's mostly engineers, electronics, mechanics, and IT. And we get calls, basically. We get called by utilities and now by industries also, food industries too, who are asking and requesting for missions. We are talking about strategic pipelines, the larger ones. And we've got already, just by people incoming calls, about 4.5 million of sales pipeline for the next 2 years. And most of those utilities are talking to us about 5 to 10 years involvement, so recurring programs. In terms of steps, where are we at? And that's where Imagine H2O comes in, because we are taking on the urban challenge with our last and final step before commercialization, which is a mission with Dunkirk and Suez. That's going to happen at the end of 2023, over 2.5 kilometers of ductile iron pipe. And this is really a key step for us, because that success will basically trigger all the pipe we have behind. In terms of impact, where we believe, if we want to make an impact, we need to make money. And the numbers, are here. I'm not going to detail them. But I just want to dwell a little bit on making an impact, because, yes, we are going to save water and the energy that you need to produce and clean that water. But what's more important is the social impact. We help utilities drive their investment and optimize their investment. And that way we help them curb the price of water, because we have a fight currently between, trading water and keeping water as a good for humanity. And that's where we really want to help. And I think that's where we really make an impact, rather than just saving the water by improving the performance of the network. Thank you very much.
Presentation. Can you talk a little bit about the competition and how you differentiate yourselves from competitors?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. And actually, yes, the competition is actually, you have solutions currently who can map out the network, solutions who can find leaks, and those are, I would say, plentiful, not fully accurate, but you have them currently. But assessing condition is very different. It's really bringing the full data over the network, and that you have very little solutions. What you have currently is solutions are inherited from the oil and gas, because obviously that's where there is and was money. And those are machines that are carried by streams. That means they don't have controls over themselves. That means it's the data they can collect and the places they can go to is very limited. And that's where we make the big difference. Basically, what we have is the first intelligent and fully autonomous solution. So we can do condition assessment, but we can go way beyond that. We already have utilities asking us to do some work on water quality, for instance, measuring the differences in a chlorine level over certain distances. And we have so much intelligence in the machine that we can really go way, way beyond just condition assessment. And that is something that none of the people who have, I would say, the carried by the flow snakes, which is probably the only competitor we may have, can do for the moment with the technical condition they have.
I'm curious to, it looks like you've had a couple stages of pilots, a pilot and maybe a...
Oh, yes, we did.
How is your model or your product, your service, how has it changed over time from your original pilot, what you've learned in the process?
What we've learned, in terms of model, to be completely transparent, it's always been like this. We've always said we want to do a service. My associate and I, we come from the SaaS business environment, and this service-based approach has always proved to be interesting for our famous VCs we were talking about before. And from a profitability perspective. What has changed is probably the granularity of the price. That means we found out that there's a lot of different materials of pipes. There's a lot of different problematic we're going to have to face, nature of mission. And this is where the pricing has been evolving. It's much more granular in terms of what's the size of your pipe, what's the materials, what are the conditions, and what are the data we know before we enter your network. And those are the elements that has made us change. And the other elements, because you're from more like the industry is more recent for us. We've been contacted for the past 6 months very intensely by a lot of big industries. And there we know that there's going to be a lot of higher, heavier restrictions on how we can implement our solution with those guys. So this also is going to change our pricing probably. But the model itself, in terms of a work per kilometer, it's always been this one, and we don't see for the moment any view on changing it. The only change that will be is when we had some utilities telling us, we want like 100 robots over the network, and we want them permanently with us. That means we're going to install a place to launch them, and then we'll send them on a mission, and we'll tell them what to do. But that's probably 3-4 years down the line, and there the pricing model would change. It will be more like on the maintenance, installation and maintenance model. Yeah, I talked too much on the second one already. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thanks, JF. Okay, so next up we have Tina from Doppler.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about what we're doing at Doppler, but before I get into that, I want to provide some background information that I know you already know, but that helps to set the stage. So, utilities across the globe are facing an interesting combination of more extreme weather events happening more often, fragile infrastructure, aging infrastructure that's more likely to fail during those weather events, and smaller staffs, particularly those crews that are responsible for responding when infrastructure fails. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on climate. I think everybody's very familiar with the issues that we're facing there, just some headlights to highlight the issue. I do want to highlight this subhead here where there's multiple billion-dollar disasters related to climate in the US this year alone, and that also this is happening in more places at once and that this is going to become only more common. At the same time that these more extreme climate events are happening, infrastructure is fragile. So this Black and Veatch water report highlights that infrastructure was a top concern in 2012, continues to be a top concern today. I also want to highlight that staffing is the second top concern with utilities, according to this report. So let's talk for just a second about staffing. So in the past, utilities would respond simply by throwing more people at the issue. Today, caught between retirements and a competitive job market, that's no longer an option. They're having a hard time keeping crews fully staffed, particularly those crews responsible for responding to emergencies. So that brings us to what we're doing at Doppler. We think we're in a new situation with new circumstances, with this new combination of extreme weather happening, fragile infrastructure, and understaffed teams. And I've moved forward. So, so we think of response management in three components. So we have inputs, or the data coming in. We have triage, the analysis of that data. And then we have dispatch, or what you do with that data, all underlaid by customer experience. We use AI and automation to streamline the response process. Doppler RMS, our system, takes in data from customers, however that data comes in. It also can combine that with infrastructure data. It analyzes or triages that data to figure out what kind of issue are we looking at. Is it water? Is it sewer? Does it belong somewhere else? Is it a standalone incident? Or is it a wide impact kind of issue? And then it dispatches that to the team where it needs to go at the right time. It determines, by the way, if it's something that needs to be addressed right away or if it can wait, because we all know not every single customer call needs to be addressed right away. It also collects response documentation along the way. This information can be used to inform customers, if appropriate, can be also used for internal insights. Now, I want to dig deeper into one type of data that water utilities haven't been able to use very well so far, and that would be customer photos. So photos are important in that they can provide critical details, critical details that help crews understand what they're facing. So what equipment do they need? What's the core issue? How many people do they need? This can reduce the number of trips taken and reduce response times. Now, I want to talk next about a specific incident that happened in California when there were a series of atmospheric rivers around the turn of the year. So Oakland, California in particular experienced thousands of calls, and they only had 2 trucks to respond. So you can see in this little video that you can zoom in the system to see clusters of hotspots, and then you can zoom in further to see individual incidents. You can click on those incidents and see specific details, including photos and notes that customers might have uploaded. So this is an example of photo that a customer uploaded. So next I want to take you to what we're doing with Imagine H2O and the Urban Water Challenge. Storms and flooding do not follow neat utility boundaries. I say neat, but this is actually a picture of the Bay Area, the water districts in the Bay Area in California. And you can see those utility boundaries are anything but neat, right? This has 2 impacts. Incidents do not stay within utility boundaries, and a lot of times customers don't know who to call. We want to explore with the Urban Water Challenge what impact a centralized response system can have across multiple utilities. We want to explore the impact that has on customers, on the water supply, and on the environment. We know that response management makes a difference. We save on average 50% in response time with our clients and up to 80% of response costs. We think that that could be exponentially bigger if we have utilities working together. So we're always looking for introductions to utilities who have real-time response issues. We're also looking at non-traditional use cases. I apologize for the slide issues, and with that, what questions can I answer for you? Thank you.
Can you explain a little bit more how the customer data, the pictures come into play, and then what other factors are there? I guess one of the questions that I kind of had looking at that is, a lot of times it's the wealthier areas and certain customers are the ones that will make the complaints and send in the pictures. And so how does this prevent that sort of directing the resources to those folks versus those who have less of a tendency to call in or send a picture or things like that?
It's a good question. I'm actually going to use not a water incident example, but trash. So we also work with solid waste companies, and we have a client in Bakersfield, California, and we have found that it doesn't matter the neighborhood. Everybody submits their pictures, lots and lots of pictures. The nice thing about the response system is that everything is documented, including the time it takes for someone to respond. So you can take that data to show that you're responding equitably, no matter the neighborhood.
Can you talk, thank you so much. Can you talk a little bit about how you build trust with utilities?
Wow. How we build trust with utilities. So that's a great question. So response management is kind of a new category, right? This isn't something that sort of existed before. And so, yeah, we had to not only build trust, but we had to first explain what it was, and then get utilities to believe in it. And so we did start out with some friendlies. So our founder, who couldn't be here today, also a civil engineer, has worked in utilities for decades. And so our very first client was Johnson County Wastewater, which is in our direct neighborhood. And so with some friendlies, we built out the system, and we collected a lot of data to show that it worked. We went to other utilities with sort of a pilot pricing model, so that it was a low risk for them to implement, and then again proved out the business. We're at a point now where we've had lots of pilots. We feel like the story is pretty well established, and it helps having those reference customers, and we have a lot of them. Sure.
You mentioned that you could save 80% or achieve an 80% reduction in response costs. I guess this is part of the sustainable business model. How do you charge on an ongoing annual basis for this service? And do your clients from the pilots see, that this completely pays for itself? It's a good investment from their behalf. That's what seems to me might make this whole business proposition very sustainable for both you and the client.
Yeah, so we have an annual subscription model. It's a software as a service or a platform as a service. And the cost savings in almost all cases prove out. One of the simplest way to improve costs is to reduce unnecessary truck rolls. So for some of our clients, that's the entire return, right? By being able to look at the data coming in and saying, yeah, no, you don't actually need to roll a truck to go explore this. And so 80% reductions, particularly after hours when overtime costs come into play. So that's one thing. And then the reduced time that it takes means that you can deploy, your teams, your crews elsewhere faster. So don't know that I entirely answered your question, but software as a service model, yes, they're definitely seeing return. I was told there was only going to be 3 questions, so.
Wait, do we have time for one more question? 3B. I'm curious what's the sales plan to get outside of the Bay Area, and what would be the strategy with that?
Yep. So we actually initially, we're from Kansas City, which is, for those of you not familiar with the United States, directly in the middle of the continental U.S. So that was actually our original area. And the sales plan has been, quite frankly, we do a lot of just cold outreach. We've started going to conferences. We kind of started our real big sales push during COVID, so sort of cold outreach was one of our main options. And we have started going to conferences to meet other people. We rely a lot on referrals. We've been pretty successful with the cold outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tina. So up next, we have Christine from Ocean Oasis.
Thank you, Taylor. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine, CEO and co-founder of the Norwegian company Ocean Oasis. At Ocean Oasis, we develop offshore desalination plants using wave energy to provide reliable water with 0 emissions at an affordable price. Already, more than 300 million people depend on desalinated seawater. And by 2050, it will reach close to 1 billion. And unfortunately, we cannot continue desalinating seawater the way it's done today. More than 90% of the energy used for desalination comes from fossil fuels, and the outlet of brine close to shore harms the local marine environment. A water utility providing desalinated water is facing multiple challenges. They need to increase production to meet demand. They need to lower their carbon footprint, the local environmental impact, and also preferably, while doing all of this, save cost. It's not an easy task. At Ocean Oasis, we have an ambition to solve all of these challenges. Our solution is a floating offshore desalination buoy, where we're using wave energy to mechanically drive a conventional reverse osmosis desalination process aboard and lead desalinated water to shore through pipes along the seabed. Our technology is based on more than 15 years of development, building on competence from the Norwegian offshore industry. And running the entire process away from shore ensures higher quality of the intake water and makes it easier for the brine to dissolve in the ocean waters. We can deploy multiple buoys at the same site to meet the specific demand of our customers at utility scale. The size of the buoys are up to 25 meters in diameter, and each buoy can produce up to 1,600 cubic meters of fresh water per day. This equals the consumption to around 2,000 EU households. Our market potential reaches areas with suitable wave environment and a need for water. We're targeting municipal water utilities to start, but our water also has large potential for industrial purposes. We go to market in Spain, which is Europe's largest market for desalinated water. We plan to build, own, and operate to sell water on long-term contracts, which is a scalable water as a service business model. We do not require any upfront investment from our customers, and we take care of operations and maintenance. We already have solid and long-term investors on board. Our main investor is the Norwegian family office Grieg Maritime Group. And in addition to national funding, both from Norway and from Spain, we have received 2.5 million euros in grant funding from the EIC accelerator. And the EU's EIC fund is ready to invest 6 million euros when we are ready to scale. We have established our pilot activities in the Canary Islands, the Spanish islands off the west coast of Africa. In the islands, more than 70% of the water for human consumption is desalinated. And as islands not connected to a central grid, decarbonization is challenging. Around 10% of the electricity production in the islands is used for desalination. We're already present in Gran Canaria with our full-scale technical demonstration buoy, Gaia. Gaia was launched to sea this winter with key local, regional, and national stakeholders attending. With the Urban Water Challenge Prize, we're preparing for a new pilot in the north of Gran Canaria. This pilot will deliver desalinated water to an existing desalination facility, increasing their volumes to meet demand, both for human consumption, but also for agriculture. We've got a lot of great attention and local support, and this is the president of the Island Council of Gran Canaria, Antonio Morales. At our launch event last fall, with national and local media present, he said that our solution is a contribution to guarantee the supply of water and accelerate the energy transition in the island. Our next capital raise is planned for early 2024, and we love to talk with potential customers. Let's do climate-friendly water. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit more about the brine and what happens to that? I think you said that because it's further offshore, there's more space for it to dissolve, but is there any other solution baked into this to deal with the brine?
Yep. So the brine is released from the buoys, so the volumes from each buoy is not that big, and also our our production depends on the movement and the wave conditions. So when there's more movement in the water, there's also an additional brine being let out. So we have done brine studies, and we'll continue to follow up with studies on the environmental impact, and we can see that a few meters away from the discharge point, we can't see any kind of increase in salinity.
Related to that, you at a euro or a dollar per cubic meter, you'll be cost competitive, so that's good, as long as you don't run into some contingency, unforeseen consequences of the marine environment that puts you out of business. So like, that's where your pilots will be important to determine your long-term mean time to failure, your maintenance costs over time, that you can truly, sustainably deliver that water for a euro per cubic meter. Your biggest benefit may a lot of your statistics and energy would be for the Middle East, because that's where a lot of the capacity for desal is, which is fossil fuel based. But elsewhere in the world, people are moving towards solar and wind power desalination in addition, or other forms of electricity. So that may not be your key USP outside of the Middle East. But your brine may be, right? And your impact to the marine environment may be, which could be very interesting. And then I think it'd be interesting for you to, when you tell your story, to tell that, bring that part of it out and look at your recovery rate. Are you doing a 50-50, that'll impact the concentration of the brine you're discharging back into the environment. Those sides of the story are very interesting. I'd love to hear maybe you answer, even if elaborate, but I suppose a bit of feedback. I think that's a great part of your story. Thanks.
Thanks. I can comment on that, and that's what's really important for us now in Gran Canaria, both with our current deployment, but also especially the deployment that's upcoming now, where we're planning for first one unit delivering to a desalination facility, but then with an agreement to deploy additional 3 ones to have the first fleet, is to get hours of operation in the water. And I think something that's also going to be very interesting for us is to see on the desalination process itself, as you mentioned, because we are agnostic on that. Where we are innovating is on the source of energy and the delivery of a stable flow of pressurized water, and the desalination system itself. There we're agnostic, and we're also, I think, keen to explore potential partnerships and collaborations.
Can ask another. Can you talk about the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
The biggest challenge for us, I think it's about getting hours of operation in the water, and that takes time. Yeah.
Maybe to piggyback on some of the comments here, the competition, say, to like solar energy, to other green energies that maybe, where do you see the benefits versus the cost of maybe looking at just solarization, desal versus other things like that? Like where does yours excel versus the competition?
It's taking energy for desalination out of the equation for the local grid, for example, in islands. And I think what we've been discussing on our team is that desalination is maybe the hardest thing where you can kind of move away from fossil energy sources, because you need a stable base load, and that's difficult with renewables. And taking that desalination out of the grid is a key selling point in many situations. And I think all good solutions are needed to tackle this issue.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, great. So last we have Jack, who's going to introduce POW Water.
Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. Kelly, you want to help me out here? Or Kelly?
Okay. Yep, hold on, but we're far.
Awesome. Well, before I begin, I want to thank the Imagine H2O team. You guys have been absolutely incredible. Also, the fellow contestants and the judges. It's an honor to be here with you today. I'm humbled. I'm Jack Hartpence. I'm the co-founder and CEO of POW Water. And this is Pal the elephant, and he's all about trust. And POW Water is built around a simple thesis, and that thesis is that more people today have smartphones than access to tap water. And through technology, our mission is to change that narrative and to democratize access to water. So what is the problem? Why do more people have smartphones than access to tap water? Well, ultimately, it's because pipes are broken throughout the global south, and the World Bank estimates it's going to cost $60 trillion to bring those 2.5 billion people access to piped water. A lot of us would call that a pipe dream. Anywhere that, and why is that, right? Like, why do more people have smartphones and access to tap water, and why is this one of the fastest growing markets in the world? It really has to do with two things, and that's rapid urbanization and climate change. The cities in the world today growing the fastest are also the cities that struggle the most when it comes to water. And climate change is deplenishing traditional water resources and really exacerbating the problem and straining the piped water network. By 2050, over 50% of the world's population will live in water-stressed areas. So if you don't get water from a pipe, you get it through a private water market, you ultimately suffer. Why do you suffer? It's a trust issue. Where did the water come from? What's the quality of the source? When's it going to be here? When's it going to arrive? Delivery is highly unreliable. And lastly, what's the price compared to the quality? And in times of need in this market, oftentimes pricing is highly exploitative. Our vision at POW Water is to be the most trusted water supplier in the world. Our promise to customers is simple: high quality water, reliable delivery, transparent pricing, and exceptional customer service. And most importantly, when we make a promise, we keep it. What we've built is a virtual piped water network to delight our customers. And while this might just look like it's an app to order water, I can assure you it's so much more. You click a button, you place a water delivery, you see it's on the way, you pay digitally, you can see the source of water, the quality of your source, and even we can install sensors into your tanks, and you never even have to order again. We'll automatically dispatch. So that's our front end, but this is our back end. So we've got 3 different platforms here. One is Artemis. This is our data platform. This is where we track how water is moving above ground as well as below ground at the aquifer level. This is critical when we think about building sustainable and resilient cities of tomorrow. The second is Hermes, and I want to give a big shout out to Imagine H2O here. They've really helped us with our sensor technology in the network and also route and query optimization. This is our operating platform. This is how we deliver water more efficiently. And the third is Atlas. This is our customer experience platform. It's how we chat with our customers. It's also integrated with M-Pesa, the largest mobile money provider in Kenya, as well as QuickBooks for real-time payment integration. We're growing exceptionally fast. We've delivered over 80 million liters of water to over 20,000 customers in Nairobi. We're growing about 40% month over month. And we're the right team at the right time to solve this problem. Got an exceptional team behind me. I'm humbled. I'm probably one of the least smart people on the entire team. Maria's our co-founder and chief product officer. She was just named a top 50 Africa business hero by the Jack Ma Foundation. Jeremy and Tony both led senior teams at Twiga and Uber. Ruth was the third employee at Jumia Kenya. When she left Jumia, they were Africa's most valuable startup. And Ellie is our co-founder and COO, runs our strategy, finance, and operations, previously at JP Morgan. We've got international backing from Forbes. Gates Foundation has been a long time and early supporter of ours. Of course, Imagine H2O. And ultimately, why does any of this matter? And it matters because the world needs a digital solution when it comes to water. When we think about how we're going to bring these 2.5 billion people access to water, it really starts with data. We need to understand this market. We need to understand how they're getting water and using that data to promote access and distribute water more efficiently. And at the end of the day, our goal at POW Water is to build more resilient and sustainable cities of the future. I'd love to get in touch with you. I mean, so many bright and incredible people in the space here today. Feel free to reach out to me. I've got my email here, phone number, and would always love to chat. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks, Imagine H2O.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah, pleasure.
Very smooth presentation. Can you talk a little bit about the people who you are providing access to?
Sure, that's a great question, Eliza. Thank
And
you.
also just the price point and
Yeah.
how you're differentiating and segmenting the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So pricing in this market is typically regional, based off neighborhood. So in Nairobi, what we see is a 10,000 liter truck goes from anywhere from about $50 a truck to $30 a truck, and that depends on geography throughout the city. Our customers are mainly B2B. About 90% of our customers right now are businesses, and about 85% of that is monthly recurring revenue on contracts. These are a wide array of businesses, so apartment complexes, hospitals, schools, churches, Kenya's largest chicken provider, Chicken Inn. So a wide array, and then we also do some B2C. It's a segment we're really growing. I had a gentleman from Uber up here, Tony, and he's basically coming to crack that, and we're flying there right now. And so we're only working in Western Nairobi. So we're servicing about 20% of the city right now, and so we're really excited because we're just kind of at the very top of the cake right now. Yeah, thank you.
Apologies if I missed it, but so for the businesses, is that the only way they get water, or is that supplementing potentially if they have like a break-in service or something like that, or
Yeah,
both?
it's a great question, ma'am. So basically in Nairobi, what we see is about 70% of the city has no access to piped water at all. Many of our customers do have access to piped water, but it might run, say, once a week. And so what we do for many of them is we augment. We also have customers that are completely off the grid. It kind of runs the gamut. With our sensor technology, what we see that's really interesting is we're actually getting data around how often does Nairobi water run. And that's very informative when we think about what markets we want to kind of penetrate more, and what neighborhoods, what streets. It's all, we can see all that in the modeling, which is really exciting.
Are there sort of minimum sales volumes, or kind of what are the typical volumes people are buying?
So our minimum is a 10,000 liter truck. So you can download our app, click a button, we'll deliver you a 10,000 liter truck. Typically what we see is like our highest LTV clients will spend, our highest one, for example, will spend $350,000 US this year on water. And then our minimum one will maybe order water as a household, like at my house, once a month. I'll order one truck, maybe two trucks, depending on, if I have guests or something in town, but yeah. But we're mainly in the B2B vertical.
Your 20,000 customers are mainly businesses. Maybe I got that number wrong. Was that it?
Yeah, mainly businesses,
Yeah.
but we also service microgrids as well, which is actually a really interesting vertical. So we'll deliver to a microgrid the bulk water volume, and this particular client has 10,000 people that live in that compound. And so we service to them, then they filter the water, and then they run it through pipes kind of internally, and that's an area that really excites us. We see a lot of movement there.
Where are you getting the water? And have you had any challenges with supply disruption?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And so with us, one of the things we've looked to do is really decentralize supply. And so we have a sharing economy model as well as an incumbent strategy. So maybe I'll just talk about the sharing economy for a bit. So Eliza, let's say at your house you have a borehole, and it's just your family at your house, and you've never been able to commercialize your supply before. What we'll actually do is come in and help you commercialize that supply, help you get all the necessary permitting, and then even put up a small microfinance loan so that we can begin off-taking and turn that into a monthly recurring revenue stream for you. And what we like to do is have many smaller fill sites rather than huge centralized fill sites throughout the network. One, we think that's really good for the aquifer. Two, it's really good for data for us because we get to better understand the aquifer. And lastly, it's more resilient. So that way in time, like in Nairobi, for example, we've seen the aquifer drop about 150 to 200 meters based off the rain season to the dry season, which is quite insane. And so we really like that strategy. And then there's also incumbent fill sites. So these might be fill sites that are in the business of selling water. And with those, one thing that we'll do is once we get to know them, we'll lease it. And so that way we have full exclusivity for our network. Sweet. Thank you guys so much. Pleasure.
And with that, we are at time, which wasn't maybe the original plan, but we have a new plan. We are going to do judging deliberations after this session, and We will do them after this session, and then we will announce on social media and at our happy hour this evening of who is the winner of the Swedish Fish Tank. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions for the Swedish Fish or the panelists, I encourage you to come up and ask those questions, learn more about them, or even Imagine H2O. We're going to send you off with a fun video that we have about piloting. And here are our other sessions that you should come to. Okay. I think I can get the...
Right now around the world, we're feeling droughts more intensely. We're seeing so much more flooding. Our infrastructure around water is crumbling. Water is going to be one of the biggest issues of the future, and now is the time for us to really focus on solving our water challenges. Imagine H2O is here to make that process easier. Imagine H2O is set up as a 501c3 nonprofit to help entrepreneurs navigate the water market. We really work to provide the entrepreneurs with the resources to develop their technology, commercialize it, and then bring it to new markets. After working several years with entrepreneurs, we realized we had to focus on pilots. Pilots are demonstration projects to validate the technology to the market. Pilots are so difficult in the water industry because water is so risk averse. Small and mid-sized utilities don't really have the financial resources to help entrepreneurs and think about innovation. The pilot program's goal is to get to that green light faster. We provide the entrepreneur with co-funding for the pilot so that the end user doesn't have to put all the money into the project.
Imagine H2O would help to fund the build of our first mobile pilot trailer. They really truly look out for startups in the industry, especially as an early stage technology company commercializing something that nobody has ever done before.
The pilot funding that we received has allowed us to expand to a new state and set a new precedent for how an entire state can actually be managing its wastewater.
Additionally, we provide mentorship and introductions for the entrepreneur to be able to facilitate that pilot better. Imagine H2O's mentors are investors, customers, experts in the space, all that can help the entrepreneur in their journey.
Their coaching was really valuable. They support us with mentoring and also financial support. It was a really nice collaboration.
And once the pilot is in action or complete, we really showcase it on a global stage to tell other tech adopters about the solution and the project.
Imagine H2O has been very critical in helping us reach the global market. Our customers have read about us and we have been able to deploy our solutions in South America and Singapore.
Water is such an important part of climate, and it's often left out of that conversation. We're really stealing climate through water. And water innovations have a huge role to play in both mitigating and adapting to climate change.
Our cities are facing longer periods of drought, but also longer and more intense heavy rainfalls.
Our big hope is that people have better access to safe drinking water. They're able to tackle climate change in terms of how that's impacting their water supply. It's improving both human health and ecosystem health, and it's making us more efficient with our water for the future.
This award enabled us to sustainably reduce urban water pollution. And we've observed time and time again the value of pilots in the water sector being immeasurable.
You should apply to Imagine H2O's pilot programs to get funding you need, the visibility, and the introductions to make your pilot into a scalable success. We believe that water is solvable, and we do everything we can to make innovation accessible to those that need it.
Thank you. And with that, we don't have the winner, but we will have it later. So please, everyone, enjoy the rest of the evening. Please come say hi to the companies and to the Swedish Fish. Thank you so much for coming.